70 million people will bet on the Super Bowl this year. And the craziest part is most of these people are taking the wrong bets. But in this video, we'll be breaking down the picks that you actually want to take instead if your goal is to win some money while watching the game. And let's get right into it with Saquon Barkley, maybe the most exciting player in the entire NFL, maybe the best player in the entire NFL, at least over the past month. It seemed like that right now, carrying this team on his back. I took an alternate line of Saquon for more than 99.5 rush attempts or rushing yards, and here's why it's appealing. Okay, for starters, if you just want to look at the trend of this is an alternate line. What does that mean? It means his actual line's like 114.5 rushing yards. We kind of pushed this one down to an alternate line of 99.5. It's easier to hit. And check this out right here. I mean, all three of his games in the postseason, we know he's cleared this. 118 in his last game, in the divisional round, 205, a massive game against the Rams, of course, and then against the Packers, he goes over 110 yards as well. But you can keep scrolling here. 167 yards, 150. This was the one game in his past 10 that he didn't top it. 65 yards against the Steelers. So what does this mean? It means Saquon has topped this number of 99.5 rushing yards in 9 of his last 10 games, 90%. And now he's facing a Chiefs defense that is a quality run defense, but they just gave up 147 yards to Buffalo the last time out. Saquon could hit this number by halftime. All right, so we'll start by putting in Saquon Barkley for 99, over 99.5 rushing yards, and then we're going to go over to Travis Kelce, another big name in this game, probably the most recognizable face in all of the NFL and definitely in this game right now for the average public person watching this game. Now, Travis, like Saquon Barkley, has a very appealing alternate line if you want to look at it for his receiving yards. And we will look at it because it's all the way down to 49.5 receiving yards. Now, his actual line for this game is in the 60s, but you can bet this one down to 49.5 yards and still get a good number on it. And here's the appealing thing. Last time he went out there, he was under this number, right? It was his worst playoff game in like 3 to 4 years, but let's zoom out a bit. Because if we look at his playoff game logs, right, you see this last one against Buffalo. He's now struggled twice in games against Buffalo this year, just 2 catches for 19 yards. But if we scroll out a little bit here, let's look at the other receiving yards. This column right here that we have highlighted, 117, 93. These are all playoff games. 116, 75, 71, 80, right? You see all these over 70, over 90, 100, 100, 100 plus. We can keep on scrolling back here for years and years. In the playoffs, this guy delivers. Sure, he didn't do it last game, but in 14 of his last 15 games, he's cleared this 49.5 receiving yards number. And now he gets to face the Eagles, who have been getting scorched in the playoffs by tight ends this season. And you can see right here on StatMuse, these are the tight ends against the Eagles in the postseason. There's a photo against Zach Ertz. That's the last guy they faced, a former player on the Eagles, a very good player for them. He had 104 receiving yards. You scroll down a little bit more. This one right here, 54 receiving yards on 7 catches. That's going to be Tyler Higbee of the Rams in the divisional round. The game before that, against the Packers, they gave up 5 catches on 5 targets to Tucker Kraft. They've been getting scorched by tight ends this postseason. So I like Kelce to go over the 49.5 receiving yards. I'm not as much of a fan of his actual line in the mid-60s, but I do like the 49.5 receiving yards number here. I'm going to stick with this side of the ball, or this team specifically, and look at Xavier Worthy for the next play here. He has a very appealing alternate line as well, and that alternate line for Worthy is 4.5 receptions. His actual line, depending on where you look at, is between 5 and 5.5, but this one still has a good price on it, and here's why I like it. For starters, if you look at his recent game logs, Worthy has topped this number of 4.5 catches in 7 straight completed games. And during this span, he's easily been the team's #1 receiver, dating back to week 15. Look at this. He's basically come on the entire second half of the season, but 11 targets, 8 targets. Okay, this game he runs one route, and then the starters get pulled. 6 targets in the postseason, 7 targets in the postseason. So far in the playoffs, he leads the Chiefs, believe it or not, in overall touches with 14 at the wide receiver position and catches with 11. They're just scheming this guy production right now, so there'll be a couple of short, easy wide receiver screens, bubble screens that he'll get work on, a couple of shots downfield. I like him to go over this number pretty easily, and I want to now go to the other side of this one with the alpha receiver for the Eagles and A.J. Brown. And look at one of his alternate lines. It's very similar to Xavier Worthy's. It's set at 4.5 catches. His actual line for this game is 5 catches. I also like that. More on that in a second. But this line has a great price at 4.5 receptions, and obviously it's easier to hit. We can scroll through all of his game logs, right? He had 6 catches last game, struggled the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Okay, towards the end of the season right here against Dallas, he didn't have Jalen Hurts. But if you just scroll all the way back here, in these games where Jalen Hurts was active and healthy, 8 catches, 8, 4, 5, 6, 5, 5. To start the season, he's had 5, 5, 6, 5, right? All these, I'm just screaming out numbers there. They're all more than, over 80% of the time when Jalen Hurts is starting this year, more than 4.5 receptions is what A.J. Brown is delivering, including his last game. And the most beautiful thing, if you've watched some of our previous videos this week, you know this stat already, but he's facing the Kansas City Chiefs, who play man defense at a top 10 rate this season. And A.J. Brown ranks in the entire NFL #1 amongst all players against man coverage, averaging 6.7 receptions per game in similar contests. This is my favorite play on the entire board. So now we have a the first entry built for the Super Bowl. You see $25 to pay $100. 4 times your money is pretty good for four alternate lines. You're still getting good prices on all these. The Worthy play, the Saquon rushing yards, the Kelce play I think might be the easiest one to hit here, 49.5 receiving yards. Knock on wood that doesn't come against us or come back to haunt us. And A.J. Brown over 4.5 receptions. I took this one on Prize Picks. You can as well. There's a QR code on the screen or a link in the description below. When you use that and you sign up and join with code SAL23, they'll give you a free $50 bonus, a bet to play with today. And it gets even better because for the Super Bowl, they're running this really big promotion. You can see almost 500,000 people have already taken it, including myself. Patrick Mahomes for more than a half a passing yard. Of course, he's going to get just 1 yard to hit this for you. It is a free win. It's a promotion. It's a marketing effort by their end, but you get the benefit from it with a free win. So again, the QR code is on the screen to take the plays we just talked about. More in this video as well. Get the free $50 bet and the free Mahomes play. It's a bunch of stuff out there. When you sign up with code SAL23, you get it all. Now let's build a second entry here. And I want to start with Patrick Mahomes for this one. We just showed you that free play that he has, but there's another really nice play that's actually set at a pretty similar low number of a half, and we'll talk about that right now. It's actually a half an interception. I like this right now. Now, do I like the over or the under? Well, let's talk about it. Because if you recall way back like 3 months ago, which seems like forever ago now, Mahomes started the season struggling. A lot of interceptions, most in primetime games. He had 11 interceptions through his first 10 games this year. And now if we look at the trend lately for Patrick Mahomes for this specific play, let's look at it as of late. If we look at his last 10 games and we scroll down here, he's under this number, under an interception thrown in 90% of his last 10 games. That's 9 out of 10. He's only thrown 1 interception during that time, or in 1 game. He threw 2 in 1 game against Buffalo way back in November. You can see right here, he had to force one of those. But other than that, this is the line right here of a half an interception. If you can see this trend line, he's thrown 0, 0. You keep scrolling, 0, 0, 0, 0. In 9 of his last 10 games, he's been money. He flipped the switch the second half of the season, including in the postseason, where he has 0 interceptions this year. And speaking of the postseason, not just this year, if you look back over his last 10 playoff games, he's only thrown a pick in 2 of those games, just 2 of his last 10. So because of all this context and now it being the Super Bowl, I like Mahomes for a half an interception, under a half an interception here in this one. I think it's really appealing, even against a good Eagles secondary. Let's go to the Eagles side of the ball now for our second play in this entry that we're building here. And I want to talk about Saquon Barkley, someone that we talked about as alternate rushing yards. I like his overall rushing attempts this week as well. Now, do I like the over or under? It's set at 22 rushing attempts, which honestly, that is going to sound high, but it shouldn't because, well, let's just look at what Saquon has been doing lately. If we scroll right here, if we go over his last 5, you can see all these bars pop up on the screen. The green means he went over. So in 4 of his last 5 games, he's gone over this number of, you can see 22 rush attempts. You go up a little bit more. How about his last 10 games? Well, 70% of the time, he's gone over 22 rush attempts in 7 of his last 10 games. That's only gotten more concrete in the postseason when they're leaning on him, when Jalen Hurts hasn't been 100% healthy, and when he's just been dominating. And what's even better is over the last month and a half, 2 months or so, he's been seeing over 25 touches a game. They are leaning on him, and this one has a close spread. A close spread of just 1 point. The Eagles are 1-point underdogs in the Super Bowl. The game should remain close, and if that's the case, we're going to see work early, often, and throughout this game for Saquon. I like him to top this number of 22 carries. So let's add in Saquon for more than 22 carries, and we'll mix that in with the Mahomes under a half an interception. But there's another play on this one that really nobody is talking about at all, and it makes complete sense. This is arguably the RB3 on his own team, but this is a really appealing play. Your gears might be turning a little bit, and look, we're talking about Samaje Perine. Yes, Samaje Perine of all people, because he currently has a prop in the market, which is a crazy prop that he's hit in over 90% of his last 15 games of 7.5 receiving yards. But as he hit the over or the under on this, well, let's talk about it. Because we can look at his trends once again right here. This is the trends that we're seeing for Samaje Perine. If we look at his last 5 games, well, what do you know there? He's over this in 4 of his last 5 games. The green means he went over. This one right here means he went under. But let's zoom out a little bit more. Let's look at his last 15 games. We zoom out a little bit more. Look at this right here. Look at all the greens on this bar chart. There's only one time in his last 15 games that he didn't clear 7.5 receiving yards, which means over his last 15 games, basically this entire season, he's hit this number 93% of the time. This is a number that, of course, Isaiah Pacheco was hurt for some time, but even with Pacheco active or not out there, Perine has been delivering and hitting this over 90% of the time. And in a close game, I could see a couple of checkdowns, specifically in the 2-minute offense. That's where Perine plays. So if we get a 2-minute offense drive at the end of the game or before the half for the Kansas City Chiefs, that's the opportunity for us to get Perine to top this. This is a guy who can get this in just probably 1 reception is what we're looking at, but there's a good chance he could see 2 or maybe even 3 targets in this game. So we take the over there. We combine all these plays together for our second entry, $20 to win 100 here. So 5x on money, not bad. The Mahomes under a half an interception, Saquon's rush attempts, and Perine over 7.5 receiving yards. Again, that is the second entry. We'll have another one in this video, and the QR code, I'll pop it up once again. You can share it with your Super Bowl party. Why not get a free $50 to use on the Super Bowl? And not only a free $50 when you sign up with code SAL23, but you also get this Mahomes freebie of a half a passing yard. So you get the free play win, you get the free $50. Make sure to share with all your friends at the Super Bowl. If they're like, hey, got any promotional offers? There you go, code SAL23, get you all that. Let's build another entry here. This one might be my favorite. I think it is my favorite. We'll start with Isaiah Pacheco, another Kansas City Chiefs running back, because he has a line in the market right now of 4.5 receiving yards for his longest reception. I actually got this number at 3.5 receiving yards, and I like the over. We don't have to bury it on this one. I like the over at 3.5. I also like the over at 4.5, and there's a couple of reasons for this. This one might surprise you, but the numbers aren't lying. Pacheco has hit this in 70% of his games this season, despite not being 100% for the majority of the season health-wise. And to make this even better, if you look at his average yards per catch this year, they're 6.5 yards per catch, which means he literally needs one catch on average to top this number. And I think he's going to see at least one check down target at some point in this game. He's going to play a minimum of 30% of the snaps, potentially upwards if he has a hot hand and he looks good of 50 to 60%, maybe even more. Keep in mind, he's been dealing with an injury. He now has 2 weeks to recover from that. In the last game, he didn't see as much work. I think because there was a fumbled exchange early, that was a clear, definite point to when he started to see less work and Hunt started to get more work. And not to mention, he's facing the Eagles, who on average this year allow 4 receptions per game to opposing RBs. So we'll start with that play, and now we'll go over to a Dallas Goedert play that I think almost every single person is wrong about because of recency bias. The 5 receptions, everybody is taking the over on this. I think they are completely wrong because look, so far in the postseason, Goedert has been great. He's seen the most targets for the Eagles. He's been producing for them. He's found a touchdown against the Packers early on, but let's zoom out a bit. Because if we look at his game logs, according to Fantasy Pros right here, okay, we need him to go over 5 receptions. How often has he done that this season? Well, he didn't do it the first 2 games. Okay, then he does it in 2 games here when AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are banged up. Keep that in mind. Then you scroll a little bit more, doesn't go over 5 catches. Doesn't go over 5 catches. Not over 5. Not over 5. Keep scrolling down. Not over 5. And now in the postseason, he's only over it once. So if we look back, he's over this number just 1 time in his last 6 games and only 23% of the time this year. And if we like AJ Brown to go over 4.5 receptions in this game, well, then there's less likely chance that Goedert is going to go over as well. It's possible, it's just less likely. So I've actually taken Dallas Goedert for less than 5 receptions. I like Goedert to score a touchdown in this game. I think the odds are good on that, but I don't like him to have 6 catches in the game. There's a difference between those two. Now this helps us build our second entry, $20 to win 100 once again here. You can put as much as you want on it. Dallas Goedert for less than 5 receptions, and we have Isaiah Pacheco more than 3.5 longest reception. I like it at 4.5, and then I also added AJ Brown more than 5 catches. We took his alternate line of 4.5 earlier. I also like him at 5 catches as well. You get a little bit more of a payout there. I like both of them. So those are the 3 entries that we've taken. Again, a friendly reminder, you get a free $50 over on Prize Picks if you want to take them on this exact site, the exact plays that I took right here, build these same entries, or add in whoever else you want. You can take advantage of all that with a free $50 and the free Mahomes play when you use code SAL23 upon sign up. There's a QR code on the screen, a link in the description below. We have 2 other videos that are out for the Super Bowl this week. The best bets video and how to turn $10 into $750 with the specific entry that I think is the best. If you're going to have a chance to do that, this would be the one to do it with. Those videos are going to pop up here right now, so be sure to check those ones out. And best of luck on the Super Bowl. Enjoy the day, enjoy the betting, enjoy the friends, family, and fun, and I'll see you in the next one.